So I was recently requested to do a video response on this guy. I do apologise, I have been on holiday for a few weeks. I haven't had the opportunity as I would have liked, and I will get around to doing the video responses that I was requested to do. But first of all, let me get around to responding to this one.
I'm going to start this off in a somewhat cliched manner with a quote, the source of which I can't pronounce properly, so I'm sure everyone knows it anyway. The quote is, "When I feed the hungry, they call me a saint. When I ask why people go hungry, they call me a communist."
The reason why they call them a saint for feeding them, but call them a communist for the sake of the starvation, is because communism can't avoid it. It's really all down to the free rider problem. It's down to the absence of secure private property rights, and the evidence of that was found in history. It's like I pointed out many times before, especially when you look at the history of the Jamestown settlers in 1607. Most of them had succumbed to famine, as well, of course, due to disease. And then within the space of a year or two later, they resettled another 500 settlers, and again 440 of them died of starvation. Now, the reason for why that happened was discovered because of communal ownership of property, simply because the absence of secure private property rights, in other words. In the absence of secure private property rights, they never had the freedom, the liberty, to work for the fruits of their own labour. That was primarily the reason for the starvation.
And this is just the juxtaposition of these two things. We have, on the one hand, we have charity. We have giving of whatever resources are available. On the other hand, we have liberation. We have it so that we're making it so that we don't need charity. And this is just the juxtaposition of bourgeois society, how bourgeois society views the poor and people with disabilities, and how a proletarian, a socialist society would view people with disabilities. And that juxtaposition is really the theme of what I'm going to get at. Disability issues are class issues.
Let's just cut straight to the point. The way that you treat disabled people as a socialist, you treat them like they are completely incapable of doing anything for themselves. And one of the things that I was taught, even when I was studying travel and tourism, is you never treat disabled people that way. I already knew that, of course, but you never treat disabled people that way, especially if you're working in an airport. You don't treat them like as if they're stupid. You do not treat them like as if they're daft. You don't treat them like as if they're beneath you. And that is generally what I tend to find about, socialists. People such as yourself as a socialist tend to treat these people like as if they're completely incapable of doing anything for themselves. People who support capitalism do not view the disabled people as if they are beneath us. That is far from the truth, and far from the case. And if there are any private business owners out there who treat any sort of disabled people like that in general, in a capitalist system, in a free market that is, we believe that the free market would, of course, solve that issue, because if one private business wishes to abuse its customers, if it wishes to abuse its workers, then another business will step in competition and provide for what that business is not providing. Okay? Now, a business's reputation is vitally important. There is only one way that you can get by, and the only way that you can be successful as a business in a free market is by providing a service that consumers will benefit from. You cannot make a profit any other way. Your business can only make a profit from providing a service customers will be happy with, because you do not have the income tax, you do not have the subsidies to save you. And even if you were to argue over the subsidies, there's examples plastered all over history of the failure of the subsidies, such as in the railroad industry or the turnpike industry or even the steamship industry, which I could of course give examples all on their own. But there is the issue. Since the only way for private businesses in a free market to make a profit is by providing for customers and upholding a good reputation as a business, you really aren't going to get away with treating your workers like shit. And by the way, if you treat your workers like shit, that passes off onto consumers. And so what I'm saying is, if you want to be a successful business in a free market, you're going to have to uphold a good reputation, and that requires, a good reputation on your workers and a good reputation on your customers.
The fact is that when we think of disabilities, what we think of is that there is this level where abilities should be, and that a person with disabilities is lower than that level. It is what's called the deficit model of disability. The idea is that if you have a disability, you are objectively less. But a little bit of investigation shows that that's not true. What people are putting forward quite accurately is that disability is a socially defined concept. That you have a disability not because you are less, but because what you need is not congruent with what society provides. Let me give you an example. Most people would think of blindness as an objectively deficit disability. Why? Because you are deprived of a sense. You have fewer than the standard number of senses. But let me point out to you this. Right now in this building, what do we have? We have lights. We have windows. Everything is set up so that people who can see can get around. And we have nothing set up, or not nothing, but we have fewer things set up so that people who cannot see can get around. So imagine if all of society were blind.
To say that things in general, even within businesses and places in general, to say that they are solely set up for the sake of people who do not have disability, maybe in some cases this is the case, and I think that's ridiculous to say the least, and that's a fault of the business itself. However, to say that, all businesses are set up in this way, that it's only set up for people who can see to get by, is just absolute nonsense, to say the least. If you design websites, one of the first things that you are taught is not just how to design a website based around people who can access it normally, but of course to provide things for those who are disabled. And this just applies to people who design websites. Now, your example of windows and lights being there so that you can see for the luxury of those who are not disabled, who are not blind, etc., etc., that does not take into account that there are many things put in place for those who are disabled. And in many cases, whether you go to a college building, you go to universities, you go to many of these businesses, you will find there are things put in place such as elevators, etc., solely designed for those who are disabled. To say otherwise is just lies. That's what it is, it's lies. In many cases, in many places that I have visited, there are facilities there for the disabled. In fact, if you were to go through anything involving, if you were to go through anything such as a job application form and go through the whole process. If you were to apply for a job and you go through the job interview process, etc., etc., and you go to work for that private company, I can guarantee you somewhere along the lines that they have policy there for the disabled. They have facilities there to help people who are disabled. So you see, I do not buy into that absolute crap, because see if businesses, and I kid you not, right, see if businesses did not pay attention to the important people who are just as important, those who are disabled, see if they didn't cater for them, their business is not going to last very long. They're not going to do very well, and they wouldn't benefit from it either. I don't know where you seem to get the idea from that if a business neglects a certain quantity of consumers, that is somehow going to benefit their business. That makes no rational sense whatsoever. You contradict yourself by later touching upon profits. Yes, the goal of every private business is to make profits, right? If you do not cater for a certain percentage of your customers, such as if you ignore disabled people, you're not making it, you're not maximising your profits, you're actually making a loss from that. Why would any business wish to do so? I really do not understand that logic. If anything, if a business is to make a profit, it's going to cater for its disabled people. So, you see, all of that is just theoretical nonsense that you're speaking. I don't know, I can't think of any business in my head where they ignore disabled people. I really cannot. A lot of the retail stores out there, in some way or another, cater for disabled people one way or another. For example, especially people who are in wheelchairs, they have elevator access from the ground to the second floors on certain stores, etc., etc. They have facilities there.
These windows would not exist. There would be no need for them. These lights would not exist. There would be no need for them. And a sighted person, someone who used this extra odd sense that no one can understand, would struggle to get around. This is the idea of the social model of disability. That disability is defined by society. And comrades and friends, that definition is a class definition. That definition comes from the bourgeoisie, directly from the bourgeoisie. And the way that it comes from the bourgeoisie is according to the principle that everything that happens in capitalist society is done for profit.
Here comes the tiresome argument where it's always down to this argument that as if it's done for profit, that as if being for profit is somehow evil. Let me tell you something. See, if nothing ran on profit, you wouldn't get far. There would be a lack of incentive. You see, private businesses require a profit in order to meet their operational costs. And if you do not run on a profit system, then what do you run off of? I mean, what exactly are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that we have no money at all? Because then you're faced with the economic calculation problem, you're faced with the knowledge problem, you don't have the information of prices. And if you do argue for a wage system where people get paid wages, how are you going to pay them their wages? They need a wage, don't they? Of course. Now, socialists such as yourself contradict yourself because you're the type of person who would demand higher paid wages. Rightly so. There's nothing wrong with that. You demand for higher paid wages, which is right. However, that contradicts you, because if you demand for higher paid wages, how are you going to pay those wages if it wasn't for profit? You require profit in order to meet the operational costs of your business, in order to pay those wages. Business is required in order to make a profit, in order to, pay workers' wages. You've got no other way of doing so. Unless, of course, you believe that people will just work for free, which is just so far removed from reality, it's just laughable to say the least. First and foremost, in a free market system, under capitalism, the only way your private business is going to make a profit in the first place, like I mentioned earlier on, is by providing a service that customers benefit from. Now, I don't care if you despise the company Apple. I don't care if you despise companies like Canon or Nikon or whatever other company out there on the market. It doesn't matter if you think the likes of Apple are so greedy, even although they're not, but even if you do complain about these companies, what people such as yourself ignore is that the customers who continue to buy the goods from companies like Apple, they continue to buy voluntarily from them. They weren't forced to go out there and buy the new iPhone. They weren't forced to go out there and buy the new iPad. They weren't forced to go out there and buy their products, such as their new iMacs or their new laptops. They do it because they're willing to do so. They're willing to part with their money to do so because they value that. Now, people may argue, okay, it's expensive, and we understand that. However, what you choose to ignore is the very fact that despite that company is making a profit, those customers are benefiting from the service that they are providing. If it was not for those companies that exist, you would not have touchscreen technology on your iPhones or your iPads or whatever other service. You wouldn't have these things.
Everything that happens in capitalist society, everything is done for profit. And the very first place that we see this with people with disabilities is in education. Education is largely, this has improved in recent years, but has largely been a one-size-fits-all model. Education is set for one ability level. Education is set with the understanding that you have these abilities, that you can perform these tasks, and that if you can't, then there is something wrong with you. And where do they send you? To the jails, to the institutions. Education is conducted in a manner of that one ability level. Because what do they want to train? They want to train good workers. And they've decided, what has the bourgeoisie decided? Good workers have this set of abilities. That's what we want. That's what's profitable. So we train students to become workers in this way. We meaning they, not we. We're not responsible.
The reason you're contradicted by this very statement is because, even when I went to college, and in both college buildings that I went to, there were facilities there available for them. But what you're speaking about is about how these college courses are apparently set up that's solely designed for people who are not disabled. That is absolute bile. Maybe the general classes that are taken cater for people like as such. A lot of the courses where you'll find that. But the college that I went to, there were specific courses, and you found that there was classes specified, catered for those who were disabled. They even had the disabled toilets that were available to them, so they had facilities there readily available for them. They had the courses available to them. They just separated them, I suppose because it would be difficult for a lecturer to teach a class filled with people who are not disabled, and then I don't know. I'm not the one who runs the college. I'm not the one who's a teacher. I couldn't answer that specifically. Maybe they should have it mixed. I don't know. I couldn't really tell you the answer to that. Maybe that's something you could have a logical argument over. But to say that the disabled people were not catered for in terms of, studying for whatever they wish to study is just false. Completely false.
But students are trained to become workers in this way. And any student who cannot do that is sent off to a back room and given a second, third, or fourth rate education.
I think I know where you're coming from now, where the people are separated and they're put into, a separate room and taught separately from others to make that makes them feel less than the other people. And I agree that that's not exactly the right way to go around things. However, what on earth has that got to do with business owners, with the so-called bourgeoisie? What the hell has that got to do with them? It's got nothing at all to do with the business owner of these private companies, what your education system is doing. Okay? Your education system is run by the state, no different to that of what it's done in my country, Scotland. Okay? The state education system is farcical. I don't entirely agree with it. I don't think that that's the proper way of going around things. I think there are better ways in how you would cater and teach for people who are disabled. I can somewhat understand where you're coming from, but you are trying to blame that on the bourgeoisie, and I cannot understand that logic. That has nothing at all to do with a business owner. What the hell has a business owner got to do with the education system? Nothing. The only thing your education system is doing is preparing you for what's out there on the market. Now, who is responsible for that? The government is responsible for that. That's who is responsible. Your education system, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm aware, in the United States of America, pretty much most of your education is publicly run by the state. State funding of schools, and it's influenced from the Prussian school model. As far as I'm aware, that's what you have in the United States. So again, that has absolutely nothing at all to do with the bourgeoisie. That's really just all down to, well, you allowed the state. So if you have an issue with the way things are and taught in the schools, your issue is with the government, not with the so-called business owners who you call bourgeoisie.
And the ridiculous thing is, and I don't mean this in any way that should undervalue someone who cannot perform academic tasks, but the ridiculous thing is that there's a concept that is now just being really advanced, what's called twice exceptionality. And the idea is that there are people who have disabilities who are also gifted, people who are performing well on all the academic measures. But this system has set up the education system in such an ableist manner that they cannot perform these academic tasks. Why? Think back to your school days. How much of what you learned in high school, and even more so in middle and elementary school, had to do with academics? And how much of it had to do with Simple, odd things like conformity, organization, all these things. The classic example that I have from my education was the fact that I was required in 7th and 8th grade to keep every assignment that was given during the semester, keep it in a folder, keep it in order, and have it numbered. What academic purpose does that serve?
Okay, well, the problem with your education system is not really down to that of businesses. Again, I go back to this whole issue. That is down to the government that's running your education system. But as far as I'm concerned, I could go through umpteen examples of your world-class state education system where much of it was a complete waste of time. However, I don't think that what you're talking about is a waste of time. I actually can understand to some degree why they are making you more organised with regards to folders, to things, because they themselves as teachers have to go through umpteen work, and if they've got things numbered and organised, they can easily keep things together and not get things all mixed up together. But there's another reason for why they prepare you in that manner. They do so that they prepare you for the business world, and that's part of why they teach you organisational skills. I cannot understand for the life of me why you have a problem with that. I really don't. It goes over my head. I don't understand why you've even got a problem with that. If you think organisational skills is something useless, then I'm completely lost. Maybe you could explain to me, what the problem with that is, but, as far as I'm concerned, it's beneficial. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I mean, there's people who are very unorganised. I can hold my hands up and I can say that often the case that I'm a very messy type of person. I'm not that type of person who's very organised with things, and sometimes it can be beneficial to learn those type of things to get into a workflow, and especially with photography. I mean, if you can get into a workflow, if you can be more organised, you can do things better and prepare you better for the real working environment. If you can't see a benefit in that, I just don't know what to say. Well, anyway, folks, if you liked the video, feel free to like the video, below, comment, share the video. If you get any questions you would like to ask, comment in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Like I say, I was, on holiday for a couple of weeks. I went to, Verona, and I had got to see Venice in a day, Bologna in a day, got to see much of Lake Garda and everything, and I've got so many photographs that I can go through, and I'm just getting back to posting videos, but overall I don't feel the need to go on much more, because at the end of the day I think I've covered the most important points. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's really all down to the education system that I don't entirely agree with. I partially agree that certain things could be done better to, cater for those who are disabled. But even from the state education system that I went through, it's not as bad as what he's making it out to be. And I'm not the biggest supporter of the state education system. And the most important point, regardless of what you think, what's that got to do with, business owners? Absolutely nothing. And that's just one of these things, and we don't live under this so-called capitalist system that he likes to have you believe that they do, because the United States is living under a strong corporatist mixed economy. So, anyway, folk, like I say, comment below if you've got any questions or that. Like the video, and of course share, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you for watching. I shall talk to you later. Cheers.